Hello, and welcome back to another Fishy Plant Man production. I was thinking about talking about CO2 anyway, but I'm considering adding it a little sooner than intended. The idea was to talk about CO2 diffusion, but as I was thinking about that, I was looking at the tank, and I thought, well, everything seems to be growing. About the only thing that wasn't growing is a bit of the red root floater that I put over in the 55. I'll show it to you. There it is. The light doesn't seem to be cooperating, but it had started to die like everywhere. So I decided that over in the 55, it probably wasn't getting enough light. Despite being right next to the holiday cactus that had been growing in that tank, or at least that's where it was at that moment, it seemed to be dying back. And I figured that it was a light thing. It needed more light. So naturally, I brought it over here to the 75, which I imagine, despite the fluval only being at 30% power, which would be mid-range light, at least for this light, it would be mid-range, from like 30 to 60, and then anything above that would be the low end of highlight, right? At least for this particular light. So I brought it over here to the tank with mid-light, and I think it stopped dying at least, so it may recover. But other than that, everybody, I think I see new leaves on everybody. These brown plants, they went from like a pink to a brown color. Even the leaves seem to be growing. I don't think I see any new growth like I do on everybody else. But everybody seems to be growing. The trouble is I got to looking at the algae on the back wall, which seems to be doing too well. I.e., it has crept onto that a little bit. What is that? Liguia? Well, whatever it is, the algae seems to have crept onto it. It seems to be growing, though. It has definitely found its way onto the holiday cactus. And it is most assuredly found its way onto that low light plant. But even it seems to be growing, so the light's not too much for it yet. However, the Scarlet Temple, which I don't know if it's on that yet, it does seem to have some leaf dieback. That on the website was a highlight plant. Well, I wonder at what point is highlight above and beyond the fluval 3.0? Is that plant's requirements high enough that the fluval can't grow it? Well, I don't know about that. It seems to be starting to grow at its mid-range. Is it a strong enough light to show it at its best? I don't know. I'm not sure what its best is. It was showing some high pink color when I got it, but can you achieve that in an aquarium? like that leaf sticking straight up. I do not think that was a submerged grown leaf. I think that was an immersed grown leaf. Not going to get a leaf like that in an aquarium. So I suspect all of the plants were grown that way. The two that I'm calling brown, that one and that one, which were also very pink when I got them, those two I think were tissue culture. But anyway, get back onto the subject. I'm going to run out of time. 5 minutes in. So, how am I going to slow down the algae? Scraping it on the front is all fine and good. We need to be able to see into the aquarium. I don't want to scrape it on the back. That's difficult to get to. I don't want to, harass the plants that are very close to the back. The Scarlet Temple seems to be touching the back in place. I don't want to be disturbing it so much to scrape the glass. However, with the scarlet being, a highlight plant, apparently by definition, I don't want to lower the light intensity either. If it's growing everything, okay, everything's turning brown, whatever. If it's growing it, at least we got enough light to grow everything. And with the exception of the blue light, even the red is at 30%. Everybody else is up above that. I think there's a couple that are approaching 40%. But with the highlight and like the rest of them being medium light, I don't know about the tiger lotus. Not even sure that's a lotus. And the holiday cactus, that's, can definitely grow in very low light. But we're seeing just what I can get away with. So no, not going to back off the light. I might back off the time that the light is on because it's on all day long. I might shorten that, but not the intensity. And I would rather not touch the light at all. So my first step, a couple of days ago, I cut the food back to just barely enough to keep them fed. Now my idea of what is enough and somebody else's idea of too much might be the same thing. I think a lot of people starve their fish because everybody says, don't overfeed, so they end up underfeeding. No, I don't think I'm underfeeding. Like I said, I think what I'm feeding, some people might consider too much for 4 fish. I think it's somewhere between enough and just about right. I want to kind of feed them on the lean side a little bit, but not starve them. So, yeah. I think that some ideas might be, that's too much for 4 fish. I don't know about that. But I've definitely cut the feedback. I think my next step might be to get a canister and start a low dose, a very low dose. Bentley says low and slow like barbecue. Yep, that's what I'm thinking to start with. Because there's nothing in here. Let's see, there's 2 stems there, 5 stems there. Technically, there's 4 of them brown plants. A lucky bamboo that isn't totally convinced it wants to do well in this tank. But there's not a lot of plants. So, very low and very slow. Gonna cut back the food first. Like I say, that's a couple of days. Not gonna see much. But I'm gonna try to stop this brown diatom algae. Now, when I say diatom algae, I'm thinking of a marine algae. But I'm also thinking this would be its freshwater counterpart. Would putting enough salt in here to make it a saltwater aquarium kill that algae? Yeah, probably. It would also kill everything else. So, cutting back the food. We'll do that for a minute. And then while I'm cutting back the food, I'm going to look at, CO2 as an algae control. Not liquid CO2, but regular CO2. That might be a waste of time. I don't know. It's just an idea. Can I put in, enough to kick these into high gear without gassing the fish? Don't know. But I am aware that algae is going a little bit berserk. And I'm going to see if I can put a stop to it without touching the light. And if I do have to touch the light, not downing the intensity. Maybe cutting back on time, but not intensity. Okay, maybe next video I'll talk a little bit more about CO2 or my plans for the CO2. That is a CO2 bell, I believe, on the end of there. But it is just air, so I don't know that I'm getting all that much CO2 diffusing. Atmospheric CO2 diffusing, yeah, probably. But no, I'm considering setting up the injected CO2 a little earlier than I initially thought. But even if the first rolls around, unless I've got control of this brown algae, we're not going to be upping the intensity of the light. Maybe I'm already at the maximum first stage for these few weeds that I've got. But I'll leave you with, there's a little bit, I didn't go all the way down. The tiger lotus, or at least as it was sold to me as a tiger lotus, it is starting to grow. So, with that, I'll talk to you next time.